Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about the poetry of Peter Bluecloud, whom I'm reading out of Native Poetry in Canada. So Peter Bluecloud is primarily a 20th century poet. I think he's still alive, but I may not be right about that. He was born in 1933, so he'd be getting up there. A lot of Bluecloud's poetry is really sort of driven by the kind of resistance movements that had a lot of currency in the 1960s and 70s, like the American Indian movement in the US, and I think to a lesser extent in Canada. Canada had its own sort of Indigenous rights movement as well. So one of the things, for instance, is that I think he was involved in the occupation of Alcatraz. He participated in the claiming and occupying of Alcatraz by Native people in 1969, which was, of course, an American Indian movement protest against the settler Canadian dispossession of Indigenous people's lands. And so that protest, that the space of Alcatraz as a symbolic space, shows up in a couple of Bluecloud's poems. And I'm going to start with those ones because they're the first ones that show up in this anthology. So this first poem I'm going to read you is called Alcatraz. As lightning strikes the Golden Gate and fire dances the city's streets, a Navajo child whimpers the tide's pull, and Sioux and Cheyenne dance lowly the ground. Tomorrow is breathing my shadow's heart, and a tribe is an island, and a tribe is an island, and silhouettes are the Kachina dancers of my beautiful people. Heart and heaven and spirit written in a drum's life cycle, and a tribe is an island forever, forever we have been an island. As we sleep our dreaming in eagles, a tribe is an island, and a tribe is a people in the eternity of Coyote's Mountain. And then the next one is When's the Last Boat to Alcatraz for Richard Oakes. And again, very much about sort of reclaiming space as a protest against settler colonialism. So this is When's the Last Boat to Alcatraz for Richard Oakes. When's the last boat to Alcatraz? I hear the foghorns and lonely gulls, whose skipper on that leaky tub, the broken treaty, and what people drum and chant upon that turtle now. It grows darker here within this forest, and they try to tell me that my brother died. I laugh, and my laughter echoes through those red woods, breaking inner light. I laugh and hear a pistol shot, which is a loose rock falling from the cliff on Alcatraz. A lone bear walks the wooded mountains of Pomo Country of Pitt River Country, a tall bear whose anger is a sometimes earthquake of gentle thunder. When's the last treaty being written? It is 10 seconds to America, 1976. It grows darker still as the sky eagle folds those great wings upon my brother's sleep. It is winter and the glaciers descend upon the cities, the harbors freeze over, and the tugboat Good Citizen is trapped between Alcatraz and myth. It is cold and even the temperature of memory slows its course. The breath of that lone bear is snuffling loudly among the giant redwoods. When's the last boat to Alcatraz? It was so cold and damp, so little food, the children's laughter, that fog we remember out there. We played shadow games, close to fire's heat the drums taught need, and our need a warmth of dancing. Such strange visions on that rock. Hey, yes, these are tears at last. Told never to say that name again, and told to dream of other islands, dreaming instead of a bear, not lonely, but dancing slowly and heavily. My brother stands tall his name, now we wish his journey be in peace. And so again, this was a major protest in response to the dispossession of Indigenous lands. The occupation of Alcatraz was. And so it becomes this sort of focal point around which Indigenous resurgence can start to sort of develop. because it signals almost for the first time since, for about a century, really, the first time since the 1870s, 1880s, with the sort of formal end of the Indian Wars in the American frontier, it signals that indigenous people can reclaim their territory, can reclaim their culture, can reclaim their power, can reclaim the world that they want to build. And so it becomes this sort of, again, great moment of protest, this great sort of moment of opposition to settler colonialism in the US and Canada. And one of the other things that we, of course, see here in these first two poems that I've read you is the use of animal imagery, which is pervasive throughout Blue Cloud's work. He continually comes back to animals, in part because the animal imagery is very pervasive in indigenous North American cultures. There is obviously there are major cultural differences between different groups of indigenous North Americans, but a cosmological worldview in which humans are an integral part of a spiritual world rather than the sort of Western view that tends more to see us as a separate creation. So this is very, very central. And it is, again, part of this sort of indigenous resurgence modality that Blue Cloud is working in. So we have the occupation of Alcatraz, the reclamation of physical space, but we also have the reassertion of cultural or spiritual spaces through the evocations of and associations with different animal spirits or entities, symbols, etc., etc. I'm going to read you another poem. This is more directly sort of resistance in the form of sort of armed struggle. And Blue Cloud often writes these poems, or he has several poems valorizing those who took up arms against settler colonialism. And this one I particularly like. It's called Yellow Jacket. And incidentally, I tried to look this up, and I wasn't able to find reference to an actual indigenous person named Yellow Jacket. So if this might be fictional, my guess is it's not. But if you know who Yellow Jacket was, if there was a historical Yellow Jacket and you know who that was, please put that info in the comments. I'd love to learn more about it. So this is Yellow Jacket. He rode into town upon a wild-eyed mountain horse, his hat pulled low and down his back and shoulders, swaying and blowing in wind, long black and gray hair, and no one saw the eyes, but even the soldiers felt themselves being studied, maybe as coldly as the wind blowing down river, man and horse passing through town in silent watching, stirring along small puffs of dust and leaving behind the strong odor of buckskin and cedar smoke. He carries a pistol besides that rifle, someone said, and a young and respectful voice said, a real bad one too, I hear. An old man, a healer who still dared perform the rituals of curing, but in hiding from the eyes of soldier and missionary, hummed and muttered an old mountain song under his breath and whispered, a spirit rides with him and he carries the whole tribe. He is what remains of a tribe and we, the ghosts. Yes, said the sergeant, another goddamn fence has been ripped down and dragged until tangled and useless. We give the heathens a whole valley to live in, but it ain't good enough for them. Should round them up and shoot the lot, like we was doing before, or at least the real bad ones, especially Yellow Jacket. With a half-butchered steer tied to his horse, he approached his sister's tiny shack at the edge of town. The deer are moved to the high mountains like me, don't like the smell of oiled leather and iron stoves. Here is meat of a kind best left for the buzzards, but meat at least to eat. Another fence was torn down and 3 head of cattle slaughtered, and the meat left at the edge of town as a dare to the hungry to take and to eat and to live a while longer. And a soldier, too, found with his slit throat, a quick and clean kill, with no signs of cruelty or anger, a hunter killed by the hunted. And mounted, the soldiers rode through town, and the people watched and knew a longing, a feeling for something lost just out of reach, but not a one of them mounted a horse or reached for a rifle, but merely watched and waited, ashamed to raise their eyes to one another. And they saw him, hatless and riding slowly, so slowly into town, and the clean upriver mountain air wildly blew his hair about, and as he passed he stared into the eyes of each with no reproach, and each of them saw the holes in streaming blood as he rode through their midst, and was never seen again. And the talking, too, stopped when his sister said to the crowd of them, "Don't speak of him again. You don't deserve his name." And they watched her saddle up and take her child, and turn her back upon her husband and home, and never look back. And on that same evening a few youngsters, too, saddled up for the first time in many seasons, openly showed their rifles, and some old people joined them, and they rode up river, up toward the clean air and naked stone, and the soldiers saw them and dared not interfere. So this one I kind of like because it is a different style of poem than the two Alcatraz poems that I had read you, both of which are free verse poems. This is more, it's not a prose poem, but it almost has the feel of a prose poem. It's a ballad, right? So a ballad tells a story. It has some kind of plot line. And I think it's a ghost story, which I think is kind of cool. Like, I think there are those references at the end to the holes in the streaming blood. I think this is an indication that the spirit of Yellow Jacket rides through this town as a symbol, almost. A symbol of warning to the colonial authorities, and a symbol almost of reproach to the indigenous people who don't resist. So I think it's very cool. It's definitely a different style of poetry, a different poetic approach. And so that's really good. I like that. I like poets that can change up their style. I'm going to read you a few more. These are much more directly animal focused than the previous ones that I've read you. Again, animals clearly play central roles in those poems, but these are straight out addressed to or discussing animals. So this one's called Crow's Flight. I watched the solitary flight of a black and silent crow, never a sound, not looking around, bent upon a one-way flight, heading toward the edge of night. This next one is called Searching for Eagles. A pair of great blue herons should be feast enough for anyone's sunset. Still I chant an inner prayer to glimpse but once a circling, soaring eagle close to this river at my doorstep. This bit of Mohawk territory, encircled by cities, towns, freeway, and seaway, cannot be what my ancestors dreamed. They who intimately knew eagles, how would they reconcile today with the loon's evening cry? I pretend this river at my doorstep, for it is a backwash of the seaway, not flowing, but pulled back and forth by passing ships. No more the taste of fresh fish. What swim here are sickly, polluted, and dying creatures. Few stars penetrate the man-made haze of light. No owls hoot the night. What may resemble peaceful sleep is the reaction to troubled reality. No more eagles soar here, only those kept harbored deep within. And then the last one I want to read you, again, about this sort of experience of loss of animals, as we're starting to see. This is a major way in which Blue Cloud navigates the imagery of the natural world, imagery of animals. This last one I want to read you is called Old Friends. Dark buffalo, are you out on the plains in a rusty pickup, still counting the holes in your old boots? You were always laughing and promising to sing me your special vision song, but you never did, and I suspect that your laughter was the true vision. Actually, this one isn't about directly about animal imagery. There is animal imagery in here. No, sorry, there's not. I should have taken notes, better notes on this. No, but this is about the experience of loss and sort of the separation from community that's pervasive throughout the indigenous experience. Anyway, so old friends, I'm going to start from the beginning. Dark Buffalo, are you out on the plains in a rusty pickup still counting the holes in your old boots? You were always laughing and promising to sing me your special vision song, but you never did that, and I suspect that your laughter was the true vision. And you, painted hand growing old behind steel bars for defending women and children, I know that you haven't forgotten the desert sands you introduced me to, the mountains always ahead. And feather-held, did you ever return to the far north to marry that big clumsy guy you used to tell me about? The way you smiled when you spoke of him is the way every man would wish to know at least once in his lifetime. And you I cannot name because your name has already been re-given. You died so quickly, and when we reached you, you were smiling. Your blood still stains this ground, and the years can never erase one who dies for a people. My friends, as heavy rain falls, I just wanted to remember you all.